Bills Mafia is back. Are you ready for it? The third annual Buffalo Rumblings IPA beer release party is going down September 16th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Resurgence Brewing Company located downtown at 55 Chicago Street. I'm going to tell you what, you do not want to miss this event. Come out and hang with Joe, Sarah, and the rest of the Buffalo Rumblings crew for the Megapod. You're going to want to bring your questions and be a part of the live stream. Get involved. It's going to be live. And this year, we're also going to have our friends from Fans of Buffalo joining the party and sponsoring the fun. They're going to be in the house to provide you with all the information you need to make your away game day experience the easiest and the most smooth that you've ever had in your life. I can promise you, they do their job very well. So make sure you make it out Saturday, September 16th, 6 p.m., Resurgence Brewing Company, 55 Chicago Street. Go Bills.
Kick off the show here.
We're agreeing.
So cleaned up. All righty, Bills Mafia, welcome to the Mafia Cast, part of the Buffalo Rumblings podcast and Vidcast Network. I'm your host, of course, Papa Ron, with my two good friends here, Casey and Mike. What's going on, guys?
What's up? Labor Day
What's
weekend.
going on, guys?
It is Labor Day weekend. I got a 4-day weekend. How about you guys?
3.
Yeah, it was a 4-day weekend for me. Today, and then Monday, and then back to full-time work on Tuesday.
Sounds like a
Nice.
lot of fun. I got today off. So, anyways, we've got our 53-man roster is finalized. We've got a season here set to start very soon. What do you guys think? What was your initial reactions with the 53? Anybody that jumped off of there kind of surprised you?
Not really. I don't think nothing too crazy. I'm looking at got the transactions up right now, and I mean obviously Isabella, but he's back on the practice squad.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that, right?
Yeah, I think anytime you can get somebody that's been through the training camp and the preseasons and get them on the practice squad, it's good because we've heard before the Bills' offensive playbook is pretty extensive, so it's good to get somebody on the practice squad that kind of already knows the playbook, so they can kind of hit the ground running if they needed to jump in a pinch. But what about you, Casey? What first kind of jumped out at you?
I think we can all say the Boogie trade was just kind of a surprise. I think, well, I know a lot of us were kind of expecting a move there. The room was it seemed too full, especially after the signing of Leonard Floyd. You knew there was going to be at least one odd man out. I think we all kind of expected a little bit more for a second round pick, but he also hasn't produced like a second round pick. So our expectations were, in my opinion, a little bit higher than they should have been. But my two most surprising cuts, one of them I'm still happy about it, was David Quessenberry. I'm surprised they let him go just because he's been around for so long. But I've seen enough out of Quessenberry, and I mean, there's not enough for me there to say that we can't get the same production out of somebody like an Alec Anderson or a Van DeMark, and then Marlowe getting cut, somebody who being traded back for last year, getting cut was kind of a surprise to me. I'm sure that eventually he'll end up back in the practice squad, especially if there's injury, but I'm just kind of surprised that he wasn't immediately re-signed to the practice squad after being cut, just because of all the experience they have. And he started last year for us multiple times. So those are my two most surprising ones personally. What about you, Paparon?
Well, Questenberry got re-signed by, I believe it was the Vikings. They picked him up and put him on their 53. But I agree. I kind of had this conversation with one of my buddies the other day. We were talking about the backup tackles are Vandemark and Anderson. Both have 1 year experience under their belts, so that's kind of tenuous, right? To have limited experience sitting there to back up the most important spots, I think, on the offensive line, particularly the left tackle spot. But then they went out and they signed Jermaine Adefe, if I said that correctly. So I believe he's got 82, 83 starts under his belt, so it's good to have that experience there. But I think the team is really high on Vandemark. And everything that I'm hearing about him, he could be the tackle of the future, or maybe he can swing over to the right tackle. Everything that I heard from as far as the training camp and preseason reports and from what I saw, he was much better on the left side than the right. But we'll have to wait and see. He's still a young guy, so I don't know, because we kind of talked about last week about the offensive line and whether or not they should just blow up the line and start over. And if that happens, maybe Vandemark's part of that. But I kind of go back to what we were saying last week. I don't think that happens. I think Dawkins is a mainstay for a while, and I'm not sure about Morris. Morris is starting to get up there in age, so maybe he'll step aside at some point. Ryan Bates will step into his role. But that's the one spot on this entire roster that I don't want to say concerned, but I am. Like, they were kind of up and down in the preseason. Like one week they were fine, the next week they were getting destroyed. There was plays here, plays there that they were good, they were bad. So I just hope the starting five can pull it all together. They can get that chemistry, they can build that communication amongst themselves, and we can stick with the same five. That's going to be dependent on McGregor, McConnor.
McGovern. Yeah.
McGovern, thank you.
God, I hope it's not 5'4" McGregor down there. Conor McGregor lining up against Aaron Donald at nose tackle. I would pay to see that.
He'll take him down to the ground, be a holding penalty every play.
Yeah, right. Just dive at the knees or something. Legal chop block.
Yeah.
So John made a good point that hit close to home, stronger for me than Mike, but even for Mike, and that was like about Kingsley Jonathan and going back to the Boogie trade. Kingsley, he's worked his way onto this roster. Spending.
I think he's why. Basham got traded.
Me too. I think they saw Kingsley and they're like, we can get this same production that we have been getting, if not more, out of him that we've gotten from Boogie in the past. So, I just want to give a big shout out to him. Just getting on the team, like going from practice squad last year, bumping up and down, and sticking with it. Trusting the Bills, trusting the process, and not taking off anywhere if he was given an opportunity to go sign to another active 53 last year this summer. So it's really cool to see a local Syracuse player coming to our favorite team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had actually heard that he did get signed off of the practice squad last year, but then was released by that team. If there's somebody in the comments that knows more about that, they can confirm. But I think that's what I had heard. That he actually was signed by somebody else. They released him, and then Buffalo was able to pick him back up and put him back on their practice squad. But yeah, he has developed into a pretty good defensive end so far. And at 6'4", 260 pounds or so. He didn't have any sacks in the preseason. Kind of looking through PFF here. Their grades are kind of iffy sometimes. But yeah, he kind of made some noise in the preseason, and that made Basham, I think, I don't want to say obsolete, but somebody
just
had to
pushed
go
him out of the room.
And
pushed him out of the room.
Yeah, and what I'm going to be curious to see though is what's going to happen with Kingsley Jonathan. I'm going to say that I'm going to get that mixed up all season long. But what's going to happen with him when Von Miller comes back? Because right now they've got 5 active on the 53. Vaughn would be the 6th one when he comes back in 4 weeks. What happens at that point? Are all 6 going to stay on the roster? Is somebody going to move back down to the practice squad? Maybe somebody gets moved. And to that point, I did hear today, or maybe it was yesterday, the possibility of AJ Epinesa is not out of the woods as far as being on this team at the end of the year, that he could still be a potential trade possibility when Von Miller comes back. If Kingsley can step up and take some of those snaps away from Epinesa, I can absolutely see that happening.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'd be fine with that, but you can't trade 2 second-round picks for rice and beans. That's when, like, the Bills Mafia will be like, all right, what's going on here? Like, I mean, and even this Boogie trade was to a friend to Joe Shane, somebody who worked and has spent more hours than probably Bean's wife with Bean, Like, so if that was the best deal he could have got for him, then, I mean, AJ has put up better numbers and seems, in my opinion, on a higher direction than Boogie is. So maybe, we can get a fifth or fourth or a fifth round pick for him. But when Von comes back, I'd more expect either Kingsley to get dropped down or Shaq to get dropped down. I think it's going to be between those two. Whoever's going to just playing better or what the team needs. If we need more run stopping, then it's going to be Shaq. But I mean, we know that. I mean, Shaq's just not a great pass rusher. He's a great run defender off the edge. But Kingsley, we just got to see what he's got.
Yeah, I agree. Scott Sayre says, at least you didn't pull the Niners and trade for a fourth guy on your – you spent 3 first-rounders for. Yeah, that is very, very true. And, I mean, I think, honestly, to a point, these general managers catch more slack than maybe they should. Like, everybody always expects the first, second, and third rounders to be NFL stars or at least starters. When they're not, like, oh, man, that general manager sucks at his job. Well, okay, he missed on some of those, but what about these 4th, 5th, and 6th rounders that he's hit on, or 7th rounders in the case of, I believe, Dane Jackson? Like,
Christian
there's some give
Benford,
and take
Levi
there.
Wallace.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if there isn't room for that player on the roster, there's players ahead of him at that position, it's nice to get something, instead of nothing. So as far as that, I'm okay with that.
Exactly. I mean, that's just what J-Dub just said here. I mean, you got to get something now while you can. I mean, that was what everybody was saying with Rodgers a couple years ago with the Packers. They were like, you should trade him now while he still has something. I think it was after that second MVP. They were like, you should trade him now while he's hot off that MVP and truly get a king's ransom for him. I mean, they got a healthy amount for him still. But, I mean, imagine what they could have got for him off back-to-back MVPs, multiple first-round picks, I'm sure, and players. So, I don't know.
Yeah, before we move forward here, we did get some comments here in the comment section that we were getting some echoes. So if anybody's still hearing that in the comments, please let us know and who it is specifically that's echoing so we can try to see if we can fix that. There's also another comment here. So John says maybe Jordan Phillips because he is always injured, referring to maybe Phillips as the one that gets bounced in favor of Von Miller when he comes back. Phillips is an interior defensive lineman, though, so it's 2 different positions, and I do believe we kept 5 on the defensive tackle as well, correct? It's Phillips, Oliver.
Yeah. Daquan, Ed, Puna, Phillips, and Daquan, Oliver, Puna, Phillips, and Tim Settle.
Settle, that's the other one. Yeah.
Yes, that was the last one. That was the pinky.
That was the pinky. Yeah, going back to what J-Dub said, too, as far as getting rid of players, regardless of where they're drafted, I absolutely agree. If they're just not cutting it, you've got to cut bait. You can't just sit there and like, well, I spent a second-round pick on him. I'm going to hold on to him for 4 years or 3 or whatever and hope for the best. It's almost like playing the stock market. Sometimes you sink money into a stock that just doesn't work, and you've got to cut your losses sometimes to get out of there before you lose more. And that's kind of the same idea with that. Let's talk about the new additions to – there's a couple of them specifically I want to talk about. We'll start with the quarterback. Shane, we don't know how to say his name. We think it's Bouchel, something like that. We're just going to call him Bobby Boucher to make it simple for us. But
Hop Ron, real quick. We have 30 seconds until we are live.
The draft is live.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was like, we've been talking
we are
this whole
live.
time we're not live.
I actually hit the button this time.
It's good. So what Casey's referring to before we get into the conversation about Bobby Boucher, we have a live draft going on over here on the side while we're doing a live show. So this is going to be fun, be interesting. I've never done this before. So if you see me looking over here, that's what I'm doing.
We are building our teams while talking about Brandon Bean building his.
That's right. So back to the quarterback thing. Do you think bringing Bouchel, whatever his name is, into the fold is? Do they keep him and Kyle Allen? Do they all three get rostered? Does one of them go to the practice squad? If so, who is it?
I mean, I think he's going to remain on the practice squad. I mean, at least for now, while they learn truly who he is, what he can do, and then if he beats out Allen, yeah, I could see them just swapping him, first to second. I mean, active to practice squad.
Right. Are we just keeping competition there?
I think they just want some competition. I don't think they saw any real competition between the two that we currently had.
Yeah.
I think they just saw them as equals.
Yeah. You mentioned. Oh, it was in the comments. Somebody mentioned because I do want to go back to this, but before we do, a comment about Kyrie Elam. Before I go back to that, though, yeah, the quarterback situation. I agree. I think Bouchel stays on the practice squad. Allen's probably the week one backup because it does take time for these guys to kind of ramp up. And if you're out there and you listen to One Bills Live, they had Jordan Palmer on, and he was talking about he does mentor Kyle Allen. He was kind of talking about him, and he was talking about he's one of the smartest football guys that he knows. Like he can process things quickly. So I think it's really with him. Honestly, I think it's just a matter of time for him to digest and get some playing time, get some reps, really practice reps because he's not going to get in the games probably. And my phone is going off, and that's your fault, Casey.
You're on the clock, Ron.
I'm sorry, Pop Ron, but you're on the clock, buddy.
You got a
I
minute.
can see that.
Missed your number 2 overall pick.
Yeah. So they did let go of
Barkley.
I believe is an injury settlement. Do you think his time here is done?
No.
I can't count him out
He'll come back
because he's already been here and gone and back.
Yeah, I mean he's like the glue to Buffalo. I feel like this is another one of those Reed Ferguson. We're gonna let you go in 3 weeks. He can come back to Buffalo. He'll be back. He'll be on the clock. I mean, he'll be in.
But that's 4 quarterbacks. I don't think they need that.
Then that's when they're gonna have the competition.
I don't know. I personally think Barkley's done. I don't think he comes back to Buffalo.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean they signed Bouchel for a reason to bring him in, and they released Barkley on the injury settlement. I just don't see them bringing him back after they've brought in somebody new just to let him go later on down the road. To me, that just doesn't make much sense. I do want to go back up here because we're talking about the players to trade, talking about cutting your losses, and this name comes up, Kyrie Elam. We talked about him a little bit last week.
Just real quick, should I pick Josh Allen? I got the 3rd pick here, or 5th pick.
You should take Tyler Bass.
Yeah,
round 1.
It's so tempting.
Yes.
But we talked about this last week, and I made the comment about I don't think the team would be ready to give up on the 1st round pick. But then we trade Basham after his rookie year. Well, no, he's had 2 seasons. So had 2 seasons with the team. They did obviously give up on him. What do you guys think about Elam, though? Are you concerned about his future with the Bills?
I think if Benford outright wins CB2 this year, that puts a lot of trouble into Kyrie Elam's camp because they're more than comfortable with keeping Dane Jackson as CB4, So they could get a 3rd round pick for Elam, maybe, 4th round pick, and move on. And I can't remember who said it earlier, but just cut their losses, But if Elam can vie himself playing time and really work for it, then I think that'll really put a damper on things. And I think Benford's going to be here no matter what. I think they really, really like what they have in Benford. And I think this is the year that they're going to decide between Elam and Jackson for the future. And if Jackson just outright wins it, then I could definitely see them just cutting their losses and just going for it.
Who do you think they would pick between those two? If all things are equal, who do they go with?
Probably Dane, because they know what they have. And even I've said it, Dane is the perfect backup cornerback.
How
You
old
know,
is Dane,
I
or
mean,
how
it's
many years has he been in the league?
not many.
No,
Not many.
4 or
This has got to
5.
be what,
Yeah.
fifth year? Yeah, fifth year max, I believe.
right.
So I mean,
I'm just thinking,
he's
with
still
a
young himself.
right. I was
Well,
gonna
being a
say,
seven,
keep the younger guy, but he's not really that much younger,
yeah. I mean, well, Elam
Yeah.
is pretty young. He was young coming into the league. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've heard some people talk about is the possibility of kind of platooning these guys because Kyrie Elam is a very physical corner. He is good in man press type coverage where you can get up in their face and get physical with him. He is good at that. A little handsy at times. We've talked about
Yeah.
that, but
Johnny.
and that's not really Dane Jackson's game. So, do you think it's a viable option to go into a game and look at the potential game plan on the offense and be like, okay, this receiver, let's say, I don't know, let's throw a name out there, but let's say Justin Jefferson. We've seen him struggle when people get in his face. So let's go ahead, and I'm not saying that's true. I'm just, hypothetically.
yeah.
Let's go ahead and put Elam out there on him. And then we've got, of course, White and Taron Johnson. And then the next week, well, this team struggles in zone, so we're going to put Benford out there on the field. Do you think that's something that the Bills could do successfully?
Well,
I
isn't that
love that
doesn't
idea.
but that goes back to platooning running backs and having designated running back skills. Okay, so James Cook's on the field, so they're going to pass the ball. Latavius Murray's on the field, so they're going to run the football. But it's like it's the same exact thing. Going back and forth. I just don't like it. I don't like platooning and kind of tipping your hand as to what you're more likely than not going to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And like
Yeah,
what Wayne and John are saying, like Wayne likes what he sees. Of course he could be less grabby, but I feel like he'll make a mistake, like very physical in your face. That's why he's getting those calls, but he makes those corrections, after the fact. I mean, we'd like to see it eliminated completely, but I feel like he adjusts, he corrects the mistake, and I think he needs to be in and learn and just become the player that he can be.
Yeah, I do agree with Elam. I don't think it's time to let him go just yet. I think maybe give him another season this year to kind of see how he can develop further his game because he does have all the traits. He is a first round pick for a reason. The talent is there. There's just some aspects of his game he is struggling with and that he needs to work on and improve. And if he spends a year to try to learn that, I mean, again, we kind of go back, look at Kingsley Jonathan. He has developed into a pretty good defensive end to this point in his career. And the Bills have shown an ability, especially in the secondary, to develop guys at the corner position and the safeties. It's the one area that I don't think too many people can really lay a lot of fault or criticism towards this staff for not being able to develop that position. Yeah, you can talk about the defensive line all day. I get that. But as far as the defensive backs, we've had some good ones come through here. And you look at some of the late draft picks that they've developed with Benford, Jackson, Levi Wallace, a good example. So I think you keep Elam around for another season at least and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking on that, I feel like they saw, okay, look at the success we've had with these late round picks. What if we get somebody that's a freak of an athlete and freak of a player at the position, and what if we can develop him as well as we did the other guys? Like, imagine how, like, they would be the top two, they would be a top corner duo in the league, but he hasn't progressed the way that these other players have, and in my opinion, especially Benford. And you guys know, I mean, I was pounding the table. I loved Elam. I've been pounding the table for him last year, just give him the starting job. But that's just to the point that I'm at now personally, to where just give one of these guys a starting job and let him go, because I mean there is something to game rhythm,
Yes.
in being in there and learning. Okay, I've gone up against a guy 3 times, and 2 out of the 3 times he's hit me on the quick jab for a slant, and so now you can read tendencies and understand just the mental aspect, the mental game part of playing football against the other against whoever's across from you. So I stop the platooning, just go with whoever's playing the best, you
Yep.
trust most, and let it run its course. And if they start to flop, then throw the next one in line in. And when he starts to flop, throw the next one in line in until you find the best one out there that goes with the rest of the team.
Yeah. And this makes it. This is a good point too that John brings up. He did great last year, especially later in the stages when he had that time on the field, consistent time. He was getting better. But I've also said this about Christian Benford. Had he not got hurt, I really do think Benford would have taken over the number 2 corner completely at some point. And with the fact that he spent half of last year injured, he beat Elam out last year. He's, even though he hasn't necessarily like grabbed onto the CB2 role this year, he has battled. And I think he's that guy that if you can get him, if you put him in there and give him the consistent snaps, and he is the starter, I think he could be really, really good. And he's a big guy too. I think I don't want to say 6'2". I think he's a little too tall, but he might be 6'1". But he's got size, and they've even talked about him having safety size. So if he can develop as a corner, he would be really good against those bigger, more physical wide receivers.
So what more would he need to do in order to beat out Dane Jackson? I mean, what are we all missing as a whole that says that he hasn't played better and deserves the opportunity over Dane Jackson? You know, what is everybody like? What is so? But apparently not too well. We don't know yet. But I mean, as of our knowledge right now, he hasn't yet. He hasn't beat out Dane Jackson in the eyes of Sean McDermott. So, like, what do you guys think McDermott's looking for even more to get him to be that starter over Dane? Is it just a trust thing? Like, is it just being in the system enough, being exactly where you're supposed to be, like 99% of the time? Like, I just don't know what it could be.
I think you got to eliminate the penalties.
Yeah, Mike, you go first because Papa Ron's on the clock.
Which isn't a huge. I don't think it's a huge thing, but it's definitely, one thing that stands out, to me. So I was saying, he makes a mistake, he corrects it.
You're talking about Elam right now,
right?
Benford over Elam. So what do you think he hasn't done as well as Benford hasn't done as well as Dane Jackson?
What Benford hasn't done?
Yeah, to keep him below Jackson. Like, what do you like?
I don't know. Is he just not getting the opportunity, right?
Personally, that's what it seems like. It seems like they're afraid to go away from being comfortable, and and like with what they have in Dane Jackson, the same way they had an issue with letting go of Levi Wallace. I mean, how much did Buffalo cheer? And we all loved Levi Wallace because we knew exactly what he was. He was never going to lose you a game, but he wasn't going to win it for you. And that was for sure, and that's the exact same thing we have in Dane Jackson. They were like, they found that same comfortability and they're like, all right, you know what? We're just going to keep going with it. We saw how well, we've had multiple number 1 overall defenses in this league with average CB2 play. So we can go with it again.
It's really hard to argue that. So
yeah, I think there's definitely some truth to that because we know how McDermott is about trusting the defensive players, and that's across the board. Every defensive-minded coach, they want to trust their players to be where they're supposed to be on any given play. I think for Benford, it's twofold. One, I think that's part of it. I think they want to make sure that they can trust him to be that number 2 corner. But I also kind of wonder this because he did get the start in the last preseason game. Jackson got the first 2 games, and Benford got the third one. So to me, that tells me a lot. And I kind of wonder if maybe the team hasn't just outright said it as kind of a gamesmanship. Let's not let the Jets know who we're going to put out on the field until they actually physically walk out on that field. So I could see that being some aspect of it, similar to the middle linebacker spot. We don't know who's going to start there. We can assume, but we don't know for sure.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing at Spin's comment there. That's funny. Spin, you got me distracted. You made me miss Papa Ron's question. What was that again? I'm sorry.
Just talking about that with Benford, I think part of what we might be seeing here is the fact that McDermott doesn't want to say specifically who the starter is because of the Jets.
Gotcha.
Let the Jets find out when they walk out on the field. And it's like, okay, that's who we're going to be going up against. Because I think there is some aspect of the preparation for, like everybody always talks about preparing for the quarterback. I think you have to, when you're game planning, you're preparing for everybody on that field.
Agreed.
Because if Kyrie Elam's out there, you've got to be prepared for his physicality. If Benford's out there, you got to be prepared for, more of his all-around skills or whatever the case may be.
About
Similar
running on
to
the
like
clock.
the middle linebacker. Okay, middle linebacker. We don't know who that starter is. We can assume, but we don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think we know
I think
who it's going to be.
more of the battle is between Elam and Benford instead of Jackson and Benford. Because they're just the younger guys that just need the experience.
So yeah,
Jackson's already been there.
Playing off of what Pop Ron said, do you think they're hiding Elam and playing him in the back end of these games to, I guess, play against lower competition and like just gain confidence, and then they're gonna roll him out week 1 as the starter? Like, could you guys imagine everybody at Bills Mafia would be like, "What is going on?" Mike on the clock.
I know.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's. I don't think that's the case with that. Let's kind of like shift a little bit though towards some of these other position battles, because the 3 positions battles we've talked mostly about all offseason was the corner, right guard, and the middle linebacker. The right guard, I don't think there's a lot to talk about. I think it's a done deal. I think Bates is the center, backup center, and Osiris Torrance has won that job outright because he was the number 1 on the game on preseason number 1, and he was the first one out there in preseason number 3. There's been zero change in that, and he's played well. So I don't think there's a lot to talk about there. But if you guys have anything to add, here you go. Now's your chance.
Go Osiris. Go Cybo.
I mean, you're talking about blowing up the line, and I know, like, it's kind of drastic. We talk that way, but it's not like we're not blowing it up, but we're slowly working in the younger talent, I think. So, yeah, I mean, he played great. I mean, you can't deny that at all. So
he might have been one of the more consistent offensive linemen throughout the preseason too. So I'm excited to see him.
Absolutely.
I saw him get pushed back, and I was like, I was kind of unsure. But then, like, it was like halftime, like the second game, they started showing highlights of him, and it's like, if you pay attention and watch him every play, he was doing his job.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think he's going to be an anchor for this, a mainstay on this offensive line for a while with the Bills.
Oh yeah.
And then hopefully they can continue to build around that. The middle linebacker spot, we've got a new middle linebacker that's been added to the fold here in the last couple of days. Kind of a surprise release from the Texans, Christian Kirksey.
Thank God.
We needed somebody. Yeah, we needed somebody to come in. We have 10 days till the start of the season. He did practice. I think he began practicing yesterday. Was his first day on the field with the team.
I think so. It's either
he's on the
yesterday, the day before.
Yeah, something like that. He's on the practice squad though currently. Do you think the season starts with Dobson or somebody else? Because Bernard did practice today. He is back from his injury and practicing. So what do you guys think about that situation?
I think they're going to start with Bernard. Well, they're going to have Bernard, Kirksey, and Dodson all active week 1. If Kirksey is ready. If he's not ready, they'll just keep him on the practice squad and it'll be fine. They'll bring him up week 2. Well, they are eventually going to make Kirksey, more likely than not, the starting middle linebacker for this team, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Kirksey, not much of a coverage guy. Keep those expectations in check.
We don't need him to be coverage guy. That's why we have Matt Milano, the best coverage linebacker in the league.
I was going to say, I don't know. I think at this point because I think Taylor Rapp is going to be more of that coverage guy that they're going to use in almost passing situations. I think what they're looking for is somebody that can get in there and knows how to play defense and can make tackles. And that's where Kirksey is. I believe he led the Texans last season in tackles. Not that that's saying a lot, considering the Texans were on the field a lot on defense, so he had lots of opportunities. but he's had a solid career, and I do think he is a better option than anything we have right now. So I do kind of hope he gets on the field week 1, but I wouldn't be surprised if it takes him maybe a couple of weeks to kind of get ramped up before they're ready to plug him in there. The one I'm not sure about, though, is between Bernard and Dobson. The fact that, again, they haven't made a decision on who starts week 1, you would assume that it would be Dobson because he played through the preseason. But if we're making that assumption, why hasn't McDermott just come out and said that he's going to start week 1?
Right. I think it's still open-ended. That's why we just signed him, Kirksey.
That could be it. I mean, it might be just
It's
completely open, and they're just from this week. It's like, all right, who's doing it? Like we'll see. We'll see we'll find out what we can see in practice to find out if Kirksey is running with the ones or not.
Yeah.
Does this say anything?
What do you guys think about platooning the position for the first month or so and let him just keep battling it out?
I think you have to because you got a potential like Kirksey could be potentially the guy. You have to.
But that platooning is why we brought in Taylor Rapp. Taylor Rapp will then come in at linebacker. We'll basically be playing a dime.
Yeah.
But that's only on third and
right.
What, 8 or longer? Very third and long.
Here's what I will say. And you guys know because I've talked about Dobson before because I have that personal connection with him when I visited Buffalo a year and a half ago. But at this point, I think I've seen enough. He's not the starter linebacker. So if there is any sort of platooning, if there is any sort of in and out, it needs to be between Kirksey and Bernard at this point of in their careers.
And someone's got to step up and show that leadership.
I think I've just seen enough from Dobson to know that to quote Stephon Diggs, he's not him.
Yeah, agreed. I think we're all to that point. Like we all understand,
Don't forget about our guy Dorian too.
You mean weak side linebacker Dorian?
Well, I'm just saying. Well, we're talking about rap and coverage and things like that. I'm not saying he's the guy, but
yeah.
He could throw a wrench in all this because he played well in the preseason as well, albeit not at middle linebacker. He did get some middle linebacker snaps in that last preseason game, though, late in the game. So that does kind of make me think that maybe they're not done with him at that position. I think they might still kind of give him a look there. This year, probably not. I think this is Kirksey's job to take. And then let Dorian Williams, get his time on the special teams. Maybe he fills in here and there on the defense, and then maybe next year they say, "Okay, here you go win that middle linebacker job." So we'll have to wait and see on that. But 10 days away, guys. We are almost there, right?
Mike, you're on the clock. Dude, I'm so excited. This summer felt like it took so long, just to get here. All the news, all the crap and drama and fake drama and stuff people tried to make drama, and I'm just so happy it's finally here, man. Like, thank God. We can talk about what we see and what's going on the field, and not what everybody thinks is going on.
Right,
and we have freaking idea what the hell's going on.
That being said, that last game is exactly what we were looking for. I know we're past the post game thing, but man, great to see that scoring drive.
Yeah, they looked good. You talk about the long summer. When I was just a fan, the summers were long. I occupied my time with trying to read as much as I could, about the Bills and keeping up and everything. But since I started doing this content stuff for the last couple of summers, honestly, I feel like the summers are flying by. Like I stay busy with it. So I'm on, and obviously we're always talking about it. We're always, reading up on it. And so
it's like football season's almost all year round.
I will say that it does help it come through a little bit better. It's a lot easier to digest the summer. Papa Ron, you were on the clock.
And then not only does it hold our interest through the off season, but it really gets me into the game more. And I'm really looking at more detail, certain players doing things and all that. It's not just wanting to see Josh sling the ball around and score a touchdown. I'm really paying attention. But if the other guys,
it makes you
think. Nobody knows the linemen's names. Not a lot of average fans, but
yeah,
things like that.
It makes you think. Makes you try to figure out what is going on inside like Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott's head. Just the rot between roster construction, like in drafting and free agency. It's like, all right, so what is the game plan they're trying to create here? It's so much fun. Like being like this fan, like that's why I enjoy fantasy football so much, and that's why everybody does. We all want to be a GM. That's why Madden is as popular as it is. This is everybody's dream job, to sit here and put a team together and just go play football, go try to win a football game. It's so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I love it. It's a ton of fun. Hey, let's jump into, we wanted to do this last week. We actually received kind of a request or a comment on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Prior to last week's game, we ran out of time to talk, or last week's show, I'm sorry. We ran out of time to talk about this, but we were asked to kind of talk about, decides matter, 4 wide receivers. Just make sure we throw that in there. This is a G-rated
What else
show,
would it be? What else? I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
Casey doesn't start swearing.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
I know, you catch yourself most of the time.
So this was kind of goes back to talking about Deontay Hardy and Andy Isabella versus the Justin Shorter and type of receivers, or the AJ Browns of the world, the bigger receivers versus the smaller ones. And back when I first started getting into this game, it was all about the big receivers. Like if you weren't tall and big, the little guy, there was not a place for them in the NFL. That's kind of changed. Do you think that the smaller, faster guys has kind of replaced the bigger guys, or have offenses just kind of developed ways to get them more involved now?
Right.
Right. Well, I feel like it's become, just like Dalton Kincaid, who is our wide receiver 3, more likely than not, it's becoming more positionless football, to where you don't have Cole Beasley, who is a small guy in the slot, and then you have Dez Bryant on the outside as your number one mainstay at receiver, X receiver, and then somebody, whoever it was, on the other outside of Beasley. So now we see people like Diggs, your X receiver, your standard X receiver, going in the slot and coming in motion and being moved all around the line. And people like Gabe, who we are saying, yes, he's a big body receiver. It's supposed to be the go up and get a guy, but it doesn't matter. Like, everybody's interchangeable at this point. I don't think they really, size measurables matter, which is why the draft is a thing. The underwear Olympics, measurables matter.
The combine.
Yeah. Yes, the combine, excuse me. But at the same time, looks aren't always everything. There's a thing called game speed. We look at Josh Allen, who ran a disgusting 40 time. You don't see him running like that during, like with a football in his hands down the sideline, or Stephon Diggs, who ran like a 4.59 40. When he's burning by cornerbacks, he ain't running a 4.59. There's a certain there is a gameplay style to it. Part of the game is just being able to pull away from people. That's the adrenaline part of it. So I don't think there really is a whole thing to it. I think they're just looking, basically, like everybody said, looking for hands. Who can catch the ball? Who can get open? Who can catch the ball?
Right.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing to me that Jessica brought up here, route running. If you can run good routes, then it doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are. I heard on another podcast recently that I was listening to that Brandon Beane had commented that Josh Allen actually likes the little guys. For whatever reason, he prefers them. And maybe that's because they're faster, typically quicker, and they can gain that more separation. as opposed to the bigger, stronger receivers who you kind of got to throw the ball up there to them and, trust that they're going to come down with it. But I don't know if at this point in the NFL, positionless football. I mean, you hit it on the nail on the head with that one. And Casey, go ahead and explain exactly what the underwear Olympics are for.
Derek, come on, buddy. So, like, it's just the combine. You know what it is. Everything we used to do in training camp at Weed Sport. You work out, bench, run your 40, do your jumps and all that. It's just the underwear Olympics, man. I mean, I've never. You can get certain good things out of the draft, but I mean out of the combine, but to me, you got to take it all with a grain of salt. Like, I'm still more so about what I see on the foot. Like, the eye test is way more important to me than what they can bench, like just what they can bench. Yeah, I want to see gameplay. That's what's important to me.
Yeah. So about the receiver thing, I think part of the question was, are we going to see the bigger receivers kind of go obsolete or move away from that? But it's like, I feel like the argument's very simple. If you're in a game situation where you got to chuck up a Hail Mary 50 yards, you need that big guy that's going to go up and get it. You got to have someone on the team, right?
True.
You can't rule out that you're never going to be in that situation where you have to win a game. Regular season, playoff, Super Bowl. If you got to chuck up a prayer, you want a big guy.
Well,
you got it.
Yeah,
you can't just rule them out and get
absolutely.
rid of them.
I agree, because once you start getting down and towards the end zone and the space shrinks, it makes it harder for those smaller, faster receivers to get that separation. So you need that bigger guy.
Field gets
like
a little more
Justin Shorter.
crowded.
Yeah, or Dawson Knox. I think that's one reason why Knox has always been one of the team leaders in touchdowns, because for a long time he was one of the only big guys we had down there for Allen to throw to. There's a lot of underwear comments going on right now, and it's kind of weird. I don't know. Casey, that's your fault. We're going to blame you.
The underwear Olympics? Hey, man, I heard it called that once years ago, and I've fallen in love with it ever since.
All I think about when you say that is like the lingerie football league.
That's like, oh my God, Mike.
Okay, we are moving from.
That'd be more entertaining than underwear Olympics.
Let's move on from that.
So Derek Warren, I do want to kind of touch on this real point though. Will Gabe Davis finally go over 1,000 yards? He's that tall dude. I think Gabe's only like 6'1", so he's taller than Deontay Hardy or Diggs, but he's not Justin Shorter 6'4". But yes, to answer the question straight, yeah, I think Gabe Davis has his first 1,000-yard season.
6'2", I see him at.
Agreed. I think he does as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys heard or not, he was voted as a team captain today.
Yesterday
they did that.
So how soon does the contract extension come through?
Exactly.
That was
my next thought. So let's talk about that. Exactly. Do they sign him now? Do they give him that extension now, and in hopes that he becomes the Davis that we thought we were going to get last season? Or do they wait and see like they did with Tremaine Edmonds?
I think they're going to extend him like first couple of weeks into the season. I think they're going to get the team in place, set exactly what's going on this year, and they're going to be like, all right, goal achieved. We've hit the finish line. We've started this we've started this season. Now we can look forward to the upcoming cap, and now we can start maneuvering and figuring out, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we project it's going to be. This is what we got to do in order to get this done. So I think they're gonna just start checking off priorities. I think Micah Hyde's going to get extended. I think Gabe Davis is going to get extended, and I won't be surprised if Daquan Jones gets one more year thrown onto his contract as well. And I would expect that all to happen in the first 10 weeks of the season if it happens this year.
Didn't Jones already sign an extension?
No, I don't think so. We only have Ed Oliver on the docket past this year.
Well, I know that was the conversation for a while. I thought I saw or heard that he signed a 2-year or 1-year extension, giving him 2 more seasons this year and next. If Mike or somebody in the comments want to double check on that. That's another. You brought up Hyde. I'm not so sure that this isn't the last season in Buffalo for those two, both him and Poyer. And not to say that the Bills are going to let them go somewhere else. I just wonder if this is their end of their careers together. I could see these two walking out together. I really could. Poyer only
that's
came
why
back, I think, because of Hyde. So if they both collectively say, you know what, we're going to call it a career. I think I can answer my own question. First of all, I think if they don't get a Super Bowl, I do think they take one more shot at it. It would not surprise me though if we do win the Super Bowl this year. If both of them like, okay, it's done. We've
That's it.
accomplished our goal. We're going to ride off into the sunset at the height of our careers.
But wouldn't you want one
yes,
more?
agreed. I think that's the only but I think that's the only way that's the only way they leave this year at like this after this year. I mean, Micah Hyde, and Poyer came back because of Micah Hyde, but signed a 2-year deal, offsetting they're like staggering those 2 years, like the years together here. So that's why I think they're just going to throw one more this year just to give it to Micah to make sure they do leave at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd actually be kind of a cool story too. There was something in here. Do you want to kind of go back to? Oh, yeah. So Roy said maybe the Davis extension comes in the bye week. By then, they'll know the production level he's having. The bye week, I believe, is week 11. To me, that's too late in the season. I think if he's having himself a career season, it would benefit him to not sign an extension. Be like, you know what? If he's looking to maximize his contract, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and wait until we get to free agency, see what my market looks like, because I think at that point he can drive up his value and make more money.
Agreed.
But if he's just solely worried about sticking with the team, the loyalty to the team, and winning and all of that, then yeah, I think he signs an extension. But I mean, these guys are loyal to their teams, but at the same time, we know they want to get paid.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to see another
Tremaine
Edmonds
Edmonds
deal where we're just what do we
But
do?
that's what happens when you stack a roster the way Brandon Bean did.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't pay everybody. You
That's
can't be the
absolutely
Dodgers. You can't be the Yankees. We
I think
have
we
a
need
salary cap,
depth of good players at receiver.
which
It's key.
in my
As much as
opinion,
we run the ball,
I
as
think we
don't
do.
run the ball. I mean,
I think this is the deepest wide receiver room as a whole Josh Allen has had,
yeah.
top to bottom. Do you guys think that
Wait and see.
Gabe? Do you think that Gabe is better than John Brown?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Do you think? Okay, so there's one for one,
But it stops there for me.
but that's because we don't know. And the next
Exactly.
player on that list would be Beasley. So already we have Diggs and Davis. So that's already a top heavy. That already makes it the best room he's already played in. But when they had Beasley and Beasley and Brown before Diggs got here, there was nothing behind them.
They had a pretty solid wide receiver core with Robert Foster. I'm just saying.
I mean, I guess the deepest that you could argue would be when we had Diggs, Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, and Gabe Davis. That might be the deepest we've had,
which was 2 seasons ago.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I would agree with that. And
I think you're about to miss your pick. Sorry.
Okay,
I make me think about Crowder too, but that never panned out.
No.
Yeah.
We saw he just got cut by the Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did, and so did Beasley.
Did he? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got released as well. I think this year's group has a potential to be the best group of wide receivers, at least 1 through. If you throw in Trent Sherfield in there as that top 3, because he's looked really good through the preseason, but I do want to see these guys in when it matters. Are they who we've seen in the preseason game and training camp and all of that? I got to see more from Khalil Shakir as well. Deontay Hardy, for all the talk and chatter about his quickness and everything, they force fed him the ball in that last preseason game, and I think he had like 3-something yards per reception. Like it wasn't, Yes,
But-
there were a lot of screens and
To
things
me,
like
he's
that.
a return guy.
But they were like, it was like, but those were like design plays. They never tried to take a shot with him downfield, which I think was on purpose. You know, I feel like the Bills played a very vanilla offense defense. You know, I mean, except for when Josh Allen was calling the plays, then he was calling shots for Matt Barkley. But other than that, like it was pretty even. You know, I mean, it was. Mike,
You don't want to give it all away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, quick correction: Beasley was released, but then the Giants did re-sign him back to their practice squad. According
did
to
they?
Jessica.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. So, and that kind of thing kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, you want to have guys on your practice squad who can jump in and play because they know the playbook, they know
Yes.
the scheme and things like that. So, if in a pinch he had to get called up, he could. Yeah, this is going to be a fun season, guys. I cannot wait for it. This time next week, in fact, we will have an actual NFL regular season game to talk about between the Chiefs and the Lions. I'm just going to say it. I know I've got some Chiefs friends who listen to the show, and I'm sorry, but I'm rooting for Detroit next week.
Oh, you gotta. Who
Yeah.
isn't rooting for Detroit that lives outside of Missouri?
Right,
You
right.
know, like
It's funny when I was my preteens, teens, early 20s. I rooted for AFC teams. Like Buffalo's an AFC team, I'm going to root for the AFC. In the Super Bowl and the Pro Bowl, I always rooted for the AFC teams. Now it's like screw the AFC teams. I just want Buffalo to win. Everybody else can lose.
Hey, speaking of people in Missouri, a guy I used to work with moved out to Kansas City. That's where or Missouri. That's where his wife's family's from. But he was a Cowboys fan, but he's been rooting for the Bills pretty hard now. So kudos to him for being in Chiefs country.
right, and sticking with the
Repping
Bills. Yep. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. We're getting close to time. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe, share. We will be back next Friday, 7:00 Eastern time. We're going to talk about the Chiefs Lions game a little bit. We'll preview the Monday Nighter against the Jets, and we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming slate on Sunday as well. And I can't wait for it. The week after that, I will be in Buffalo, me and my family. So if we're walking out on the streets, do not hesitate to come up and say hi. I don't mind. I won't feel like you're intruding on my privacy or space. I want to meet as many Bills fans as I can when I get out there. So I'm looking forward to that. And finally meeting you guys.
Oh my
Very
God.
excited, man.
So I've got
Home
I've got
opener, man.
something-
This is cool.
2 weeks from today. I've got something for you, Papa Ron, mainly for Papa Ron, and for Mike as well. So it's
Really
kind of like some news. Yeah, a little bit.
cool.
So
All right, we'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, a couple of weeks we got something.
And of course, everyone's been hearing about the beer release and the big megapod, right? We played the ad in the beginning.
Yep.
So I just want to throw
that's
out
right.
that's all going on Saturday, September 16th.
Yes.
On
I believe
opening
6
weekend,
o'clock
home opening
Eastern.
weekend.
Yeah, 6 to 7 live pod. Come join the show. I mean, everybody can hop on. Derek, thanks for coming, buddy. Go Underwear Olympics.
Jeez.
All right. We will see you all next week. Go Bills.
Go
Go
Bills.